them as young people too.
Good, all right. We're going to go ahead and call the January 20th, 2026 City Council meeting to order. I'm going to ask Councilwoman Moynihan to lead us in our invocation.
Gracious God, we are grateful for the opportunity to serve our community. Guide us with wisdom and strength and clarity in our decisions. Bless this meeting and our city and our shared commitment to the common good. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go ahead and start off with a roll call. Ward 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 are present. Looking at the agenda, are there any amendments needed? Okay, if none are needed. I also want to make sure everyone saw I did add some discussion on there about the depot. Added it on there today. Is everyone good with that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, moving on to announcements. February 3rd, 2026 is our next city council meeting. February 16th through 17th, city offices are closed due to President's Day and Mardi Gras holiday. And February 18th, city council meeting, it's going to be on Wednesday because of the holiday. We do have a presentation today regarding our FY23 financial audit, so we will start with that. I would like to come forward.
Good evening. My name is Maria Saylor. I'm the audit director from ABL. This is Kim Marmelich, our audit partner. Here to present the fiscal year 23 audit. We'll start with slide 3. Before you, you have 3 deliverables. These are our physical copies of what we present is the report charged to governance. This is a standard letter of communication that we're required to provide, and it outlines our responsibility as your auditor and your responsibility as the auditee. And then it also will acknowledge any corrected statements, adjustments, and any delays conducting the audit. As you're aware, there were significant delays in conducting this audit, and they are mentioned in the governance letter. In the green bound report, you will have the annual financial report, and then you also have a letter of recommendation to management. And these are opportunities for improvement of the processes and controls and ways to improve the financial health and maintenance of the city. We'll go on to slide 4. The annual financial report is in the green bound report you have in front of you. This is the city's financial position as of 9/30/23, and it's historical in nature. It does not represent the city's current financial position. The city was given an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we can offer. The opinion that the financial statements are materially correct as they are presented. The audit report is on pages 2 to 5. And then the report on compliance with government auditing standards is on pages 64 and 65. Slide 5. On pages 6 through 11 is your management discussion analysis. This is prepared by city management, and it condenses the report and all of the issues and the financials into just a few pages, easier to read, and condenses things into highlights. Some that is in the rest of the bound report. Slide 6. We're going to go an overview of the financial statements. Government Accounting Standards Board requires annual financial report to contain 2 full sets of financial statements. The government-wide is full accrual financial statements, and it presents a longer-term focus and it includes all assets and liabilities of the city. And then fund level, they're on pages 14 through 21. They're presented on an economic resources model, and only the spendable resources that are available at the end of the year are reported at the end of the year through 60 days after year end. And also, not required by the Government Standards Board, you maintain budgetary basis. So the city really maintains 3 sets of books on an ongoing basis. Slide 8. The government-wide statement of net position we have here is a summarized version. I don't need to go through and read the numbers to you. This section is going to maintain all of your financials and the accruals. You have assets and deferred outflows of 71 million, and your total net position for government activities is 39.8 million. Business activities, total net position is 49.7. We move on to slide 9. We have the government-wide statement of activities, a summary. You'll note that there were $5.1 million on government activities, prior period adjustments. And in business activities, there was 1.6 million in prior period adjustments. Slide 11, governmental funds balance sheet. The governmental funds are on modified accrual, only report current financials, no fixed assets or long-term debt. And the general fund, largest and accounts for most of the city's activities. We're looking overall for governmental funds, cash of 5 million. Restricted cash of 1.3. These are restricted for grant specific or bond proceeds that were for a specific purpose. Other significant amounts are due from other governments. These are related to grant receivables that haven't been received yet. Slide 12. We have the governmental fund balance sheet that continued. We're on to deferred inflows. You have 4.9 in property taxes, 4.9 million, and 1.8 million in grant revenues. These are amounts that are receivable but not received within the first 60 days after year end. So they're reported as deferred inflows, and they'll be reported as revenue in the subsequent financial statement. You'll note the General Capital Projects Fund has a deficit fund balance. This is due to expenses for capital projects that have been paid before the related grant revenues have been received. So once the grant revenues have been received, the deficit would be driven. Slide 13. General fund balance sheet comparative. We're looking just at the general fund here compared to 22. There's a couple significant changes in dollar value, but the cash fluctuation is normal. This fluctuates based on timing of expenses and receipts. Due from other funds is a normal fluctuation. The deferred inflows at the second to last section, deferred inflows, unavailable revenues, they were not reported in the prior year, and that is one of the prior period adjustments that were recorded in the current year. You'll notice at the bottom, the unassigned fund balance, it increased 871,000. The GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association, recommends a minimum of 2 months operating revenues or expenses to be maintained in unassigned. A lot of cities aim for 15 to 30% for greater financial stability. Based on what we'll see on the next slide, the city currently 2 months would be 1.8 million, and the city has, well over that. So there's a good reserve in place to meet, obligations as they come. Slide 15. Governmental funds, statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. Your most significant revenues are property tax, sales tax, gaming revenues, and grants. Slide 16. It's continued. We're looking at 16.4 million in operating expenses, and we have an excess 2 million of expenses over revenues operating. Slide 17. Net change in fund balance is a $3.2 million decrease, and there's a $5.6 million prior period adjustment. The ending fund balance for all governmental funds is $7 million compared to $15 million in '22. That is a result of the change in fund balance and the prior period adjustment. Slide 18. So we have general fund comparative. Property taxes decreased $692,000. This was really a result in change in recording of funds, not necessarily a change in the chain of property taxes. Some of them that were prior recorded in the general fund or in another fund are now being recorded in the general fund. Slide 19. So we have general and governmental, general government and public safety increases were mostly related to personnel costs. Transfers in and out, they vary for year to year. And the ending fund balance of $4.4 million is an overall decrease of 2.3 from '22. Slide 20. Looking at the proprietary statement of net position, this is a summarized version. Your utility fund has a total net position, 30 million, and the harbor fund, total net position of 19.6. Slide 22. Utility fund, comparative with '22, saw a $776,000 increase in due from other governments as related to grants and change in fund reporting. There was a significant number of accounts and fund changes in the current year based on recommendations of the prior auditor. The accounting changed a lot, so due to reporting. Restricted cash increased $3.1 million, and this is related to the ARPA funds that were previously reported in governmental funds in '22. And the depreciable assets change is related to annual depreciation. Slide 23. The $3.4 million increase in unearned revenue, this is related to the ARPA funds. They were inappropriately recognized as revenue in the prior year. So this change was recorded as a prior period adjustment. And there's a change of $675,000 in the net in pension liability. And this is based on the city's proportionate share of the overall liability. We have unrestricted net assets of $311,000. Based on the GFOA's recommendation of 2 months operating costs, the 2 months operating cost for the utility fund would be $1.4 million. So the unrestricted net assets for utility fund is a little less than what is recommended for the GFOA. All right, slide 24. Then we're looking at the harbor fund comparative with '22. The due from other city funds decreased. That fluctuates from year to year. Restricted cash decreased. It's related to restricted notes proceeds in the prior year were spent in the current year. And the change in depreciable assets is related to annual reporting of depreciation. Slide 25. Unrestricted net assets for the harbor fund is $383,000. 2 months of operating costs for harbor fund is approximately $370,000. So the harbor fund appears to have the recommended unrestricted net assets. Slide 26. This is a summarized version of the changes in the revenues, expenditures, and changes in net position. Couple highlights are just the operating revenues of $5 million for utility fund operating revenue. The harbor fund operating revenues of 1.2 and operating expenses of 2. A change in net position of 1.9. Slide 27. So we're on 27. I guess got the numbers wrong. We're good. So the water sales increased $605,000. There was an increase in rates and users for the current year. And operating expenses increased $1.1 million. These are mostly related to personnel costs. Next slide. Capital gains, there was an $822,000 recorded in capital gains. This is related to grant received for capital projects, and this was also a change in fund recording from 22 to 23. Next slide. Contractual services decreased and other services and charges increased, 472,000, 457,000. These are related to recording changes being recorded in different accounts or grouped in different accounts. Next slide. Capital gains decreased 321,000, and this varies from year to year based on grant receives for capital project. Change in net position, 1.9 million increase, and ending net position of 19.6. Next slide. We have the proprietary cash flows. Utility fund provided by operating increased by 3.3 million. This is related most significantly to the ARPA funds that were not previously reported in the utility fund. And harbor fund changes used in operating was an increase of 1.6 million, mostly related to a change in due to, due from other city funds, transfers and back and forth between the different funds. Non-capital financing increased 3.2 million and related to transfers between city funds. And capital and related financing used 4.0 million, and it was for capital projects. Next slide. Most significant note disclosures, there's quite a few in there, but some of the highlights are note number 2 on pages 30 to 31 they detail your cash and restricted cash. Note 7 on pages 36 to 39 details long-term obligations, debt, and net pension liability compensated absences. Pages 41, 45 is note 9, employee benefit plan. The city's portion of the PERS pension liability is 17.4 million. On pages 49 to 50, note 15 details GASB 101 implementation. That is a change in accounting standard in the current year, required by government auditing standards to update the reporting of compensated absences. That was implemented in 23. Pages 51 to 53, note 16 details the prior period adjustments, and 54 to 55 is budgetary comparison schedule for the general fund. The city was subject to a federal signal audit. Any time the city spends more than $750,000 in a given year, they're required to have a single audit. The city spent $1.5 million in fiscal year 23. They had 2 major programs, and pages 73 to 76 summarizes the findings of the federal single audit. There was stated financial statement material weakness for overall accounting issues. 2 major program findings, duplicate reimbursement of expenditures from 2 different federal programs, and suspension and debarment, failure to acquire suspension and debarment compliance. There was also a finding related to delayed reporting to the federal audit clearance. On pages 77, 78, there was management's response and the corrective action plan, management's plan to address findings, the current status, and the resolution date. On supplemental information, the last report in the bound report is a report on compliance with state laws and regulations. This summarizes our testing procedures, and there was 1 finding related to retention of documentation to support compliance with state law. Do you have any questions?
We got a couple. Kim or Maria, maybe just take me through the difference between a significant deficiency versus material weakness.
A material weakness is more broad and overreaching. It reaches all levels of financial reporting, whereas a significant deficiency is more condensed and specific to a certain topic or item.
Okay. Specific to page 93, I think that references the reconciliations. If I'm not mistaken, some of those issues are the same as fiscal year 22 audit, correct? I know you probably can't speak to that. This is more for administration, or Mike Russo, if you can help me with that, because this is another auditing firm. On the actual on the audit findings that was sent, that's on page 93.
It's, on here, it's 74 in the,
Yeah.
if you're looking at the binder. I'm sorry, 73.
So Mike, maybe just refresh my memory, because I know that was an item that came up with the issues of the reconciliation on different ledger accounts, and that was, if I'm not mistaken, something that came up in the fiscal year 22 audit. So what was done or not done between then and
22, they were talking about bank reconciliations not being done in a timely manner. And then the financial statement being put on the financial statement, basically every month being current, even though those bank reconciliations had not been fully complete. That's what the 22 auditor was referencing. And these are going back to your reconciling general ledger balances. Do you want to, Maria, talk a little bit more on that? It's basically court liabilities.
There are
spreadsheet
state
that says how much
liabilities
is due,
related
what
to
balance
courts,
to your balance sheet.
and the management was unable to provide us with support that made the balances, that supported the balances. They weren't reconciled. Rental deposits were not reconciled on a regular basis in the realm of at the end of each period or month, they were checking to see whose deposit needed to be returned or whose needed to be recognized as revenue. And so at year end, when we were trying to support the balances, we go back and forth with management quite a bit to get that.
And just another question on, and this is on page 94. I'm looking at probably page 75 of the packet. Just in regards to the double submission of the federal grants, I know that was something, it looks like, I know there's a recommendation and a corrective action plan, but essentially that was incorrect guidance, essentially from a contracted engineer assigned to oversee the state federal award program. I think lower it was saying that is instructed by Horn to upload all the receipts. So can we just take through that process? And I know looks like it's being remedied. There's going to be some education and corrective action, but is there anything more to that has no bearings on future?
And then also to add on to Kyle's question, I know we had talked a little bit more, but for everyone in the room as well, they had additional costs that would have covered this. It's not like we owed them money or we over-submitted. It was just incorrectly.
What happened was with the ARPA funds, there was 3 sets of federal funds that were awarded to the city. Money directly given to the city, money coming from the state, and then money coming from Hancock County. So funds that were submitted for Hancock County were fully reimbursed by Hancock County, but then the state required them to upload the same expenses to their portal, and the state reimbursed half of that as well. So the same receipts were reimbursed 2 times. Through testing and looking at further invoices, there was substantial additional expenses subsequent to the year end that will cover the difference. And so there's no question cost related to the finding, and there's no expectation of repayment or anything.
Then have those been submitted since that we were waiting until the completion of the audit to submit the additional?
They weren't as of testing.
And again, that was instruction by Horn on how to upload to get reimbursed from the state that we were following.
Anything else?
Anyone have any other
Yeah.
questions?
I just had another follow-up. So I know there was some, with fiscal year 23, information gathering from the previous auditing firm, getting with our management, and so that it dragged on with the deadline. So I know we're still with fiscal year 24. I assume we're going to be in a better position to more timely get this done, because we're still beyond the 9-month time frame of when you're required to report, right?
Yeah, 24 will be late again in the federal reporting, but I don't expect any of it, because so many of our significant issues at the very beginning were related to transferring from one audit to the next.
Do you guys have a time frame in mind? When does the fiscal year 24 begin? When does that auditing begin?
We will be prepared to present the engagement letter within the next week to 10 days, and then it'll be based on management's ability to get the information compiled.
Do you guys have any kind of estimate of how
Once
long?
we begin the audit, if everything is provided timely, we can complete the city audit.
And I know our staff has already started gathering information.
And that'll put us in line, then, if obviously with fiscal year '24, we're confident we can meet that deadline and appropriate reporting by the 9 months. Okay. All right.
And moving forward, can our monthly financial reporting mirror the audit categories so that we can keep up with it and
That would be something that you would take up with
I mean,
city
the
manager.
city's running on a cash basis, and when they get it, they move it back to an accrual basis. You're talking about two different accounting methods.
And that was one of the things
Cool.
I mentioned at the beginning. There's 3 sets of books that the city is required to maintain. They're required to maintain the information in order to make it full accrual government-wide. They're required to maintain information for fund level and also budgetary. It's a lot to maintain and to produce on a regular.
The numbers should be a lot more in line this next audit, since all the adjustments were made from the previous auditor recommending that, and now we didn't make those adjustments in this next fiscal year. Okay. So look a lot cleaner.
And you'll probably have same findings twice because no corrective action.
There will be a finding for the delayed reporting. I don't expect another finding for the 2 that we have at the moment, the other 2, which related to suspension of debarment or the duplicate reimbursement. So the delayed finding would be the only one that I can anticipate this one.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I'm sorry?
Moving on to the, can I get a motion to accept the FY '23 financial audit?
Motion.
A motion by Councilman DeSalvo. Do I have a second?
Moynihan seconds.
Thank you.
A second by Councilwoman Moynihan. Any discussion? Vote the motion.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion carries 6-0. Okay, moving on to our public forum. We do have somebody signed up about an agenda item. One other person has signed up, not regarding an agenda item, so just want to clarify, we are not voting on a zoning ordinance tonight. However, we are implementing some things going forward that I'll address, because I know probably a good bit of you are here regarding that before our second public forum. But nonetheless, I wanted to state that and bring up Miss Katie Hood regarding 107 Washington Street, or 104 Washington, I'm sorry.
That's right. Good evening. My name is Katie Hood. I represent Ms. Miriam Jones and Mr. Brad Jones, who are here today in the audience. They are residents of 107 Washington Street, and I'm here today to speak on agenda item 7A, which is a zoning variance request for 104 Washington Street, which is across the street from the Jones residence. We were here just last week in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I know that their recommendation is to deny the application for the variance that would result in about a 12-foot setback to the front yard of 104 Washington Street. It's my understanding that y'all have the packet of all of the information that was provided to Planning and Zoning, and I'm assuming that that's correct. There was a letter from December from my clients, Brad and Miriam Jones, along with the actual variance package that was submitted by the Masellis. I just want to make sure that y'all have all that information. Okay, so the reason why I ask that is because in the, let me back up. It's my client's position that there is no hardship here. And if you look at the application for variance to the zoning ordinance, the actual Article 13 with regard to variances requires certain things to prove that there is in fact a hardship that exists that would give rise to the necessity or basis for granting the variance, which, as we lay out in our letter from December, we do not believe that there is a hardship here at all, much less that any of the following conditions enumerated out in Article 13, A through H specifically, are not present. But more importantly, and something that I wanted to clarify in the record, is that the zoning or the variance application by the Masellis requests or states that there is a neighboring property that has an 18-foot front yard setback. And the property that I believe that is being referenced in the application, their front yard is not on Washington Street. This neighbor we're talking about that has a supposed 18-foot front yard setback. That property in question or at issue is actually facing south, Beach Boulevard. It's 600 Beach Boulevard, and the front yard setback of that home is 50 feet. The minimum setback here is, according to the zoning ordinances and laws, is 25 feet or an average of the neighbors. This neighbor front yard is not on Washington Street. It's on South Beach. And so they've got a 50-foot setback. Their side yard is on Washington Street. But the side yard setbacks, as I'm sure y'all are all intimately aware of, is a completely different analysis and is not a 25-foot setback or an average. That language is not really even in consideration here. We're talking about a front yard setback requirement of 25 feet or an average of the neighboring properties. And there has been no evidence placed before the Planning and Zoning Commission or the City Council here today by the applicant as to what other neighbors' front yard setbacks may be. So anyway, to summarize all of that, the 25-foot requirement is what is actually
Ms. Katie,
applicable.
I'm sorry, the
Oh, I'm
3-minute
so
timer's
sorry.
up. I'm sorry.
Anyway, that was my main point that I wanted to clarify. Everything else is in the record, but that was one measurement that was not in the record, and I have some renderings of 600 South Beach. If I have extra copies, if this is something that's of interest to you.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to pass it up here, we'll pass
Okay.
it around while we continue.
Thank
on.
you.
Do you have the letter from your client? Yeah, we can give it back to you.
It's in the, it's in the back.
That's not from the applicant, that's the one we have?
A clean copy of the letter?
It's a letter, so on behalf of the neighbor. I think that's on page.
Okay, yeah, this,
Thank you. No, don't worry. All right. And Ms. Anita, we'll put you on the second public comment period for. Oh, about the invoice. Absolutely. Come forward. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the P and Z item. Sorry.
No, Anita Warner, and it's agenda item 6M, motion to approve payment to Orion Planning and Zoning the amount of $8,206.86 for the zoning code rewrite. Okay, is that the complete amount that we are paying them, or is that for only part? How much have we paid Orion for the zoning code rewrite? Can anybody tell?
That's invoiced through December 31, if I remember right.
Okay, so that's all we've paid them for the zoning code rewrite is 82?
No.
No.
It's billed through December 31 for whatever period of time that was on that invoice.
Okay,
It's not the complete, though. There's still more to go because we're not finished yet.
okay. My question is, how much, I understand we paid them for the comprehensive
Miss
plan.
Anita, that's
we
a
just-
if you can either do a public records request or either call Mr. Riso, he's not gonna have that information in front of him, but Orion had a engagement letter that was approved by the city that's probably most likely on the city's, minutes, if you look. And it'll also be on the dockets that he can easily pull for you via public records
Okay.
request.
I'm just wondering if we have a ballpark. We have any idea what we've paid?
Yeah,
them?
there is an engagement, there's a agreement out there with them, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's
It
readily
appears
available.
We're only about
It's-
71% based on the invoice.
If you look at the agenda package,
Uh-huh,
the invoice it says issue date 12/31,
uh-huh.
due date January 30 for 8,200. And breaks it down in budget amounts and how much has been, was the total was 101,500. They're 71% invoiced.
Okay, and so
And
they're
it's
still
on the
working.
agenda.
Okay,
you
and they're
can look
still
at
working on
The
it.
packet.
Okay,
So we,
thank you.
and it even breaks it down even further to code assessment was 100%, code update is 82%, code adoption is only 18%.
Thank you.
So that is our second public forum. That'll be after.
Wait,
the Marcellus?
Jordan, yeah,
Oh, you signed up
he's
on.
on,
Yeah, please come. Yeah, you go for it. You must have signed up on the second one.
Hi, my name is Joe Maselli. I'm a 10-year resident of Bay St. Louis. Initially, we had a meeting set for the zoning and planning about the variance in the property that I own at 104 Washington. But it was canceled by the people on your board due to illness. And so they reset it, but I went out of the country and I couldn't change my plans to come back in for this last meeting over here. And I just need to make a statement about the zoning. Relative to the setbacks on that street, the two houses directly across the street have an 8-foot setback, 103 and 107 Washington Street. The house directly next door on the, facing the lot, 108, he's got a 20-foot setback. And the one down the street, there was a renovation to an existing residence over there. He has a 12-foot setback from the same street. And if you go anywhere down Washington Street, there's multiple houses just about on the sidewalk over there. So what I was trying to do is, rather than a 25-foot setback, go to like a 15-foot setback off of the sidewalk, which would allow me to put a garage in the back of the house. And it would also keep me out of a flood zone on that map for insurance purposes. So that's the biggest reason. It was a hardship setback in a way because of the flood zone. The traffic on Washington Street is pretty heavy traffic. It's a main thoroughfare with a lot of boat traffic coming through the streets and that, and speeders. So if it allowed me to put a garage to the rear of the property, it would eliminate us or anyone, a guest in that parking on Washington Street if we have any company. So that's why I wanted to try and get the setback, which would allow me to have a garage in the back of the residence. The only other option I had would be to take and build a raised house with parking underneath the bottom. And I think the one I have planned would be a lot prettier than having a raised house across the street. So I don't know if you can do anything. I know you had your meeting.
Well, that's-
Unfortunately, I was out of the country. I couldn't get back in town.
Well, I'll ask the rest of the council here, is there gonna be any, I guess this would be the new evidence you would present at
This-
the P and Z meeting, was,
I believe they actually addressed that
The
in the
flood zone.
planning
Yeah,
and
they,
zoning meeting.
I know they
that
mentioned even
him
where the
building-
house being moved to, it would still be in that floodplain.
Because of the percentage
Yeah.
of the.
Yeah, the floodplain is in the back. And so if I bring it up, it would get me out of that floodplain.
Floodplain.
I'm trying to do it.
But this would be considered new.
Yeah, so, y'all wanna put it to a vote tonight at that part of the meeting, or would y'all rather move it to, back to P and Z if there's gonna be some new additional information? See if it changes their recommendation, or y'all okay with voting on it tonight?
I'm okay with voting.
Voting tonight?
Yeah, and any new information would have to go back through the process. So
Yeah.
nothing prevents him from, if it's voted upon tonight, then going back to the information again.
Okay.
But yeah.
So So we're good with voting tonight?
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. So, no, unfortunately. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the minutes approval. I'll call for a motion to approve the minutes of January 6, 2026. Do I have a motion?
Motion to salvo.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Holmes. Any discussion? Vote the motion.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion carries 6-0. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Is there anything anybody would like to pull off of it?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to kind of just go back and touch upon what Anita was mentioning and have some discussion amongst the council. Maybe Mike Riso, you can help me out too, and that's concerning consent agenda, letter M, motion for the payment to Orion Planning, the amount of $8,206. So breaking this down, as you had mentioned, Mike, so we had budgeted about $101,500. We're at about 71% total budget there, this current amount. So it brings that up to about 78. So clarification though, there's also the travel expense, and I think I had emailed you and asked, I didn't get a straightforward response. So
The travel
what is
was
that
not
time
for the
frame?
travel in January.
It was not for when he
No,
came
it
for the
says
2
their
days.
invoices as of 12/31/25. The
And-
January travel was in January 2026.
And so I guess kind of what I want to better understand, and I think Councilman Jordan kind of alluded to, and we, as we received email about, and I don't want to proceed, I won't let you talk about that, but it looks like we're going to have an engagement process, which is needed from the citizens. But my concern, it looks like, just based on the feedback we've gotten, just looking, get an opportunity to kind of digest this thing, it looks like it's going to have a lot of work being done to it. So what parameters or kind of guarantees do we have? And I guess it's pursuant to the contract that we entered with Orion. What I don't want to get in a situation is we're already at 71% of the budget. And then based on, I think, the feedback that we're going to be getting from the citizens and what we're going to be asking, we're going to be engaging Orion a whole lot through this process. So I don't want to exceed that budget. So I certainly, I want to really think about how we handle, I'd like to kind of pull this invoice and kind of better hear from Orion.
Why would you pull the invoice for
Because I
work
want to
done
understand what we've paid,
12/31?
because what we've paid for thus far. So can you ask,
I mean, it's
based
due.
on their involvement level, they can exceed the budget, right? Because there's going to be a lot more, I would imagine.
No, their
Orion,
contract
I
that
think
we've
it's a not
signed
to
is
ex-
101,500.
It's a not to
Yeah.
not to exceed. So,
That's the
so
contract
Bob will be
we have.
available for any public workshop that we have, questions, comments from the city council and the citizens, and all that will be contained within
Well, I mean,
this
I think right now
specified-
we're still in a public comment period, which we had scheduled for about 8 weeks, which is gonna go longer, because there is no rush. I mean, that was said out front. So whenever y'all, again, right now, it's just like we did the comprehensive plan, said, send in comments so they can make adjustments. And if there needs to be some other type of public workshop meeting or something that he needs to be here, then we can make that request.
And but that's not going to be in addition to, that'll be within the confines of what we budgeted.
I would have to find that out if we were asking him to fly into town.
But I think that's the most important aspect is that, well, and
Right now, though, we're in a public comment period. I would say play the public comment period out.
right, which
and
I
then-
think is very important to have that level of
Absolutely.
involvement from Orion, because again, from up to this point, and I'm just speaking for myself, and I think the council, and I've asked for updates throughout this process. I think
Mhm.
December 9th, I'd asked if there's an update, and you mentioned that you guys are working with Orion
Mhm.
specifically, and you had some concerns, and they pulled, I think it was sections 1 through 8. I mean, did they make those adjustments? I mean, is this the final product that,
This is
I'm-
the product that went public, that said, all right, y'all, now it's the 8-week plus whatever it's gonna be to get community input, just
And
like
we'll
we did
get
the
the data-
comprehensive plan.
and we'll get the data points of how Orion arrived at the current zoning districts and the current setbacks?
I mean,
Like
the
it-
first data point was your comprehensive plan
Yeah,
that
and
was
I'm
approved.
thumbing through, and there's not, you kind of have to toggle between the comprehensive plan and the new zoning, and it really doesn't specify in the comprehensive plan, it just references the different zoning districts. So, I mean, what are the data points where we arrived at the decision that we did for the different zoning districts and the setbacks?
Mhm.
Was that, because I don't see that data from the comprehensive plan, I see some constructs here, but not refined data. So, did Orion come up with that?
Well,
Was
I
it
would-
administration?
I would recommend that you, again, you've got his phone number and your email. I would say call Orion and
Yeah,
ask
and
him. You have that access to him.
And
You have
I've had
individual- every council
conversation,
member
I've submitted
does.
comments, I haven't gotten the response back. And again, I know we're gonna go through
But
this process.
I know you've had phone calls with him, so continue.
But, okay, so
encourage it.
just for clarity though, Orion consulted with administration on this final draft proposal.
Yes, we've
And
read
who would
through
that
that.
be? And who would that be in administration?
Me and Jeremy.
Okay. And so based
And
on,
obviously Mike has read through this.
okay, so based on what they proposed, you guys saw this and said, hey, this is gonna be a,
Said, this is what we should present and wait for, again, the feedback that says, all right, if we want an 8-foot setback or a 10-foot setback, yeah, it's y'all just to make a change. If you want an 8-foot fence or a 6-foot fence, those things get changed through this
Can you-
process,
then-
just like we did the comprehensive plan.
can we go through that process? Cause I wanna better understand how we submit those requests and those changes. I mean, I don't wanna jump to what you had discussed
If you,
about.
if you would, let's go ahead, you wanna pull it off the consent?
Yeah, I
agenda?
would like to.
Personally, I'm okay with voting for it because it's work done through December 31st, arriving at the draft and, hoping that there is a budgeted amount to carry us through public comment because that was something that was planned. I'm sure they planned revisions. So I think we continue going on and gathering, and if there gets to a point, I mean, you'll have another $22,000 that you won't pay them.
My only request, if we can pull it separate, pull it
Yeah,
out, vote on
discuss
it
it.
separately, that
Yeah.
way if it's a dissenting vote, I don't want that to hold up
Yeah.
anything else on the consent agenda.
All right, we will pull the consent agenda, item 6M.
M.
Uh,
So we're pulling to not
pay
to
him.
approve? or
No, it's just to vote on it
so
separately.
Oh,
Vote
okay.
on it separately. I will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda, removing item 6M. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman DeSalvo. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Holmes. Any discussion? Vote the motion.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion carries 6-0. Okay, we will, call for a motion and then we'll discuss it. I'll call for a motion to approve the payment to Orion Planning and Design in the amount of $8,206.86 for the zoning code rewrite. Have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman DeSalvo. Do I have a second?
Moynihan seconds.
Do I have any discussion?
Yeah, just discussion point. I just don't feel comfortable without understanding, kind of what the future holds in terms of staying within the confines of the budget and then the lack of involvement from the city council standpoint up to this point that we've just paid $70,000 for. So I just wanted to put that on record.
And from my understanding, we are currently under a contractual agreement.
Yes, and that's what, if you look at this agreement, there's, so the first, 10,000, or roughly $11,000 of it that you've already paid was nothing but code assessment. So that was for them to sit there and read your code. That's what and look at it.
Heather, could we get the original agreement sent to the
Yeah, of course.
council? We have it.
And so now, the bulk of what your 82% of is code update, where they've gone in there and actually updated, changed, edited. So now we are at the beginning of the public process, including council input. So there has to be a starting point where you get this to you guys and you get this to the public, and that's where we're at. We're at the starting point of the public and council input. I mean, is there a better way to put that?
Exactly. Otherwise, it's an open meeting violation.
Correct. So this is something that you all would be voting on. So in order to be interactive, you had to get a starting point. You had to get a document presented to you that then you can start openly discussing and talking about, because they couldn't call you all in a meeting and say, okay, let's start, redrafting a zoning ordinance. So that part was done by your team on your administration to get you all to a starting point. So yeah, there are going to be changes. Of course, there are going to be changes. But what Jeremy and Michael Rizzo did was go through this and try to figure out what needed to be changed before, what needed to be edited. I can't even explain to y'all the hours these two guys have spent doing this. So I guess you could say, comically, imagine what that draft might have looked like before. But again, these are planners that come in and look at an overall aspect of the city, and then it's up to us as leaders to look and say, that's not going to work for us. What's another option? And then they can make other recommendations. So there's been a lot of back and forth. So some of these too are ideas for you to consider. You might not like them, and that's okay. Citizens might not like it. That's okay too. That's why we're at this starting point. That's what today, or not today, what, 2 weeks moving forward, that's what this is all about.
Yeah, that's what going through, I
You know,
think
we
it's
spent a lot of time in the last week or two with what we disagree with and all, and wanna see change. And wanna see
Send it mine in
change
as
and all.
well.
And it's gonna continue, as everybody looks at it, they're gonna have, see things that needs to be changed as well. We're not on a timeline. If this takes 3 months, it takes 3 months. If it takes 6 months, it takes 6 months to get it done. But we're gonna do it right and get it out there. But you had to have somewhere as a start to, like we said, to, if we'll listen to input, the council, there's plenty of citizens, as you can see, very interested in this and everything, and we'll go from there. Same thing with the, comprehensive plan, so.
Well, no, and it's good that we've established those guidelines, because I think as I left the meeting, the last council meeting we had when Bob addressed it, we had a 4-week comment period. It'd go on February 11th to this planning and zoning, which will be the public hearing, and then it comes to us the February 18th council meeting for the vote.
Well,
how it
that's
kinda
a
explained.
game plan.
Yeah, so,
But that doesn't mean it's in
There's a-
stone or anything like that. I mean,
So-
if we're there on those dates, we are. But if we're not, we'll continue it.
what is our mechanism? So I know the process is you can put online comments, that's in the document. You can now email Jeremy Burke. And there's a inquiry section on the city website. But what's the justification? Because I've already seen areas that have been changed. Is that based on one citizen calling and saying, hey, I don't like the way this is zoned, I need this back? Like, what is that process? Because this document is living, breathing. I've already seen it's dynamic, but I've seen that some areas have already been changed. What necessitates that? Is it one person calling, one comment? Like, how do we arrive at that decision?
Some of the changes that I say myself, was a lot of feedback was there that we disagreed with, and feedback coming from citizens and all as well. If you disagree with the changes and all, then, it's okay, but that's what we see as we're putting our input in and all, and other ones, then you'll have something, to look at where everybody can
And
see
one
what
thing
it
at that meeting we did ask was for them to compile all so I think that's happening from this first draft, to where we come. We'll see what changes, and then I think we need to, as a council, say, do we want to keep that change, go back to the other way, but continue collecting public comment.
So Jordan, I also think that's what you're paying these planners for, is to go through and read these comments and not have to have you guys read every single comment. If there's thousands of comments, the planners can look at this and say, you know what, you're right. That doesn't meet the needs of Bay St. Louis. Or wait, maybe there's, put this one on the side for a question. Let's talk to the council about this. So I think that's part of this interactive process, is looking at what should be incorporated, what shouldn't be. If it's something that's black and white, like, oh yeah, that was a typo, or I understand what they're saying, they are absolutely right, I think they're going to go ahead and incorporate those changes as they move on, because there's no reason to have a in-depth conversation about something that everybody agrees needs to be changed. So I would imagine that that's, not to speak for Bob, but I would imagine that's what's
I would be
happening with
thinking that.
Orion.
May I interrupt? And I apologize, I'm not trying to step on anybody's foot, but I just feel like this should be during council business and allow us to get through the agenda. And then we can have this long, drawn-out conversation on the council business. Because there are people here still for this
for that.
agenda.
Yeah. No, I think Kyle's question was more on if they did the work
The motion is just for the payment.
for the payment.
Yeah, we definitely got sidetracked there, and relevant to this. But again, I want some assurances that there is going to be a lot of feedback, I'm sure a lot of time, and that we're not exceeding what we have already allocated in the budget for this project.
Well,
So,
after this invoice, there's still roughly 22,000 or 22% left. And then, I'd like to review the original one, but for work that they've already done, to get us to where we are now, and I'm okay with, continuing and approving it. We did have a motion and a second. If there's no other discussion, I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
nay.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 5-1. Okay, moving on to planning and zoning applications. Apologize, we gotta get my computer to where we are. Moving on to planning and zoning applications. I will call for a motion to follow planning and zoning's recommendation and deny the application for a variance of a 13-foot resulting in a 12-foot setback to the front yard submitted by Joseph and Lillian Maselli, located at 104 Washington Street, parcel 149P-0-30-018.001. It was approved 5-0 to deny. Do I have a motion to follow the recommendation?
Motion to follow P and Z's recommendation, deny.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Lewis. Any discussion? Vote the motion.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion carries 6-0. Moving on to B, a motion to follow planning and zoning's recommendation and deny the application for a special exception to allow an accessory dwelling on a lot under 15,000 square feet, which is a variance of 3,361 square feet from the required minimum submitted by John Robin located at 312 Demottlin Avenue, parcel 149F-0-29-262. It was approved 6-0. Once again, that was approved to deny. Do I have a motion?
Moynihan motions.
Do I have a second?
Davis second, I'm sorry.
Second by Councilwoman Davis. Any discussion? Vote the motion.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion carries 6-0. Moving on to 7C, a motion to follow planning and zoning's recommendation and approve the application for a special exception to construct an accessory dwelling on a parcel exceeding 15,000 square feet submitted by Eco Construction LLC, located at 928 Old Spanish Trail, parcel 137Q-0-36-098. It was approved 5-1. Do I have a motion?
Motion to follow P and Z's recommendation and approve.
Motion by Councilman DeSalvo. Do I have a second?
Moynihan seconds.
Any discussion? Vote the motion.
Aye.
Nay.
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 Aye.
Aye. Motion fails, or motion fails
Three,
3-2. 2-3.
3-3.
3-3.
Oh, 3-3. Okay, never mind.
So motion failed, did it?
So, so this motion,
Didn't
it
carry.
fail, it doesn't carry?
You'll need a motion to deny, though.
Okay. I'll call for a motion to deny planning and zoning's recommendation and or a motion to deny the application submitted by Eco Construction LLC located at 928 Old Spanish Trail. A motion to deny.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
So, motion by Councilman Lewis, second by Councilwoman Holmes. Any discussion? Vote the motion.
Nay.
Aye.
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 Nay.
Nay.
Go back
So,
to P and
send it
Z.
back to P and Z? Alright, we're gonna send that back to P and Z.
Table it to another meeting until we got the standing vote to break a tie, huh?
I mean, if it doesn't, it didn't get a vote to pass, so that means it fails. So it's not, I mean, you're asking to, ultimately, they're asking for approval of this, and you guys are not approving it with a 3-3 vote.
Can we make a motion to table it until we have 7
Send it
council
back
members?
to P&Z.
That is,
Send it
I wanna make a motion.
They
Well, we
could re-
have-
They could request that it come back,
Yeah.
right?
they,
The-
well,
The
they,
homeowner.
they would have to, they would start over.
Start over.
They would start the
With
request
P&Z.
over. Yes, correct.
Just let it start over.
I guess legal, that's what we have to do, I guess, huh?
Yeah, it failed.
Okay. So it'll die on the agenda from lack of
Approval.
approval?
Approval.
Okay.
Mhm.
Moving on to project updates.
Good evening. We submitted our report for multiple projects throughout the city. We don't have any action items tonight, but we can address any questions that the council may have on any of the projects.
Yeah, I've got a question pertaining to Third Street. So I know we brought this up in other meetings. And Jason, you guys just kind of did a cost proposal from Ballantyne to Bay Oaks. And obviously, what our past discussion, and Mike, I know what you guys did is, wanted to first assess and see and scope it and see if this is part of the issues with the main drain. So it can be included in ARPA. We know that's not the main drain, might be more of
The sewer line.
the sewer line. Nonetheless, especially the area right near St. Charles, right before you get to St. Charles, in between Ballantyne Street, it seems like it continues to deteriorate. And I think maybe a conservative cost estimate, again, from Ballantyne to Bay Oaks is roughly about 500,000 is kind of what we've estimated. But Jason, in terms of just kind of prioritizing areas that's continuing to, I mean, really at this point, that area is probably a hazard. If you don't know it's there, I mean, you can see people that have to swerve. If you know it's there, you're swerving into the other part of the road, so you avoid it. People that don't know, they hit it. What are our options in terms of not going forward at the moment with the full extent of the scope of trying to fix some of the most problematic areas? Because I know, again, down that whole stretch, you're starting to have that. So I think in a matter of time, it'll start to probably denigrate just like the one by St. Charles. But give me your best estimate on what can be done to address some of the problematic spots. Not just put a Band-Aid on it, but address those.
I think you could go in and, I don't want to say patch some of those areas, but we could identify what are the worst areas, the ones that have the greatest amount of settlement, and then cut those areas out, repave them, do some base repair. What we presented was to mill the whole section from Ballantyne to Bay Oaks. It was a complete rehab of that section. So if you wanted to identify certain areas and go in and make those repairs, I think that's doable.
Well, I know, of course, past a couple meetings ago, we engaged SMPDD to do a citywide assessment of all the roads and then just grade it based on the necessity, starting with the most prioritized or the worst streets, areas, and kind of, I think we had discussed is designating $400,000 to $500,000 a year to kind of improve, make those upgrades through the Road and Bridge Fund. Have you identified, I mean, I think that area is probably the worst. I mean, there's definitely still some down the stretch. I mean, I think that's a quick remedy. Mike, is there anything we might need to do just to?
What we did on Dunbar a few years back, when we did that, we just went in and pulled and had them just fix those areas where it's sinking bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worked out pretty well there.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of doing the whole thing and all, we might be able to just go in and spot it in there, get with them and get it done. Whether, Jason, I don't know if the guy that does the patches, if he might be able to do it, something to look out to him and see if he can do, that type of area and all, so.
And it's just, I mean, it's just, what you can see, it's just erosion and sediment basically under by that.
I think it's just settlement.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to when the sewer line was installed after Hurricane Katrina and all those improvements were made. It's just a backfill issue, so it's compacting from the trench up.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong. There's no settlement or there's no infiltration in the sewer line that we can tell once we went through and videoed and inspected it. One thing I would throw out is we're currently advertising for concrete, flat work, unit price repairs, and asphalt unit price repairs.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of this work could be incorporated into that contract once we receive those bids. That could be something to consider, Mayor, is once we get those bids, we know what the unit prices are.
Mm-hmm.
We can look at certain areas if we need to go saw cut, a 20-foot by 10-foot patch or whatever it
And
is.
you're not doing that for a specific project, but you're just getting quotes.
That's just citywide. Yeah, those are just
Yeah.
quotes that we'll have.
Yeah.
Ronnie needs somebody, as they make a sewer tap or a water tap, and we
Yeah,
have
that
an
you have it on
asphalt
hand.
patch. So he don't have to go out for quotes every
Where
time.
are we at on that process? Are we close to getting?
Those are advertising right now. I
Okay.
think, I don't know, it should be in our report whenever the bids are due. I don't know it offhand, but we can get that to you.
I feel like it's pretty soon.
It's
Yeah.
within the next couple of weeks, I know that for sure.
Yeah.
And so that would
Unit
be,
price, those have been advertised. I think the unit price contract for asphalt and concrete, we had those scheduled so that hopefully we can make the recommendation at your first meeting in February.
okay,
So we should be receiving those contracts or those bids within the next few weeks.
okay. And so, we can follow up and see. I mean, obviously, again, the $500,000 is gonna go from a complete,
Right.
resurfacing.
That's completely
repaving.
resurfacing.
If we can go, target with some of the problem areas and fix the root cause of it and then just repave that.
I would say since we're so close to receiving those unit price
See where
bids,
we
let's
come
get
in
the
at.
bids in and then we can go from there that could be the
Yeah.
first work order to be initiated.
Okay, all right.
I have a couple of things, Jason. I've spoken with several business owners downtown, and I see that downtown striping is nearing, getting started. Do you have a schematic or something I can look at of what you're gonna be doing?
We do. We've been working with the administration on location of crosswalks and ADA parking and loading and unloading zones, things like that. So I think they're currently reviewing the latest plan. And then, that would be something that we could definitely coordinate with, once we kind of have a finalized plan. Some of that, I think we could, again, once we get the unit price contracts in, the ADA parking, the parallel parking spaces, we'll need to modify the sidewalks to have that aisleway and that transition way for the ADA spaces. So we might be able to do some of that with these unit price contracts. The asphalt roadway unit price contract has striping included in it. So that's kind of the first step is, once we receive those contracts and those bids, we'll know what the cost is gonna be, and we can proceed at that point. But we do have a somewhat of a schematic that we're finalizing that we can submit for review to the council.
Okay, and I can add my input from, no? I got you, sir.
Sure thing.
Let's see, and, the McDonald Park master plan, has that changed any from what I saw, months and months ago?
I don't think it's changed much at all. We submitted that for a Gulf Coast Restoration Fund grant. I don't think it made the recommendation list. So we really haven't gone in and tweaked anything since we last presented it. So we'll look at.
There's room for tweaking, though.
I think
Yeah.
there is, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right.
That was something that was put together to go after the grant, but that wouldn't have been the final.
Okay.
That was just, we had to get something drawn up to apply for the grant now.
Okay. And, last but not least, it says here that we need to schedule a public hearing on fluoride.
Yes, we do.
So do we do that tonight, or,
We'll have it on the next meeting set.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I know you had some on the, council business about
Yes.
the downtown striping.
Yeah, I think Nancy may have
Nancy,
just
go
touched on that a little bit and go up to the mayor today. Hopefully roll that out soon. Bid opening tomorrow, it looks like, for the roads in Ward 6 from Ida, the 20.
That, we pushed that. We had some questions come in from the contractors about how to transition between the streets that we're paving, and the streets that, at the intersections, because we're doing about a 3-inch overlay. So we have to tie that in. So they've asked for some additional details on that, which we're working on. We did push the bids till next Tuesday, just to give time for the contractors to review all those responses.
Okay,
So we'll have a recommendation for that award at the meeting in February.
okay. In your report, can you look and maybe see about getting us some timelines, or estimated timelines on some of these, getting closer to bidding or starting construction maybe?
Sure.
Turning lanes and stuff.
The turning lanes, to give you an update on that, so we added an intersection towards I-10, I think it was
Rainier Street?
Rainier Street.
Mhm.
And so we're gonna restructure the bid proposal and have a couple as alternates, and put Rainier back in the bid, in the main, the base bid.
Okay.
We were worried about permitting in that section, but we've already got that cleared, since it's all within the right-of-way of MDOT.
Okay.
So the next phase on that is we have to submit our CE&I contract as part of, MDOT has a PS&E package plan, spec, and estimate. So the CE&I contract will go as an attachment with that.
Okay.
Once they approve everything, then we can actually go out for bid for advertising. But we can add some timeframes to some of these.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And, just touching on the McDonald Park master plan, you said it didn't make the list for the grant. Is that something we'll hold on to, resubmit it next year, or are there other grants we can go after for that?
We'll keep resubmitting it. I think we did submit that as a restore, potential restore project. We were trying to look at, Picayune did I think it's called Friendship Park through GCRF, and they were successful with getting some funds for that. To me, I think GCRF is probably the best use for those funds, but we can seek out other funds, we can resubmit next year, we can kind of go either way with that.
Any other questions? Yeah. All right, thank you, Jason.
Okay, thank you.
You have something?
No,
All right.
thanks.
Okay, moving on to ordinances. I'll call for a motion to approve ordinance 678-01-2026 of the mayor and city council of the city of Bay St. Louis, adopting salary schedule, establishing salary compensation for the officers, employees, and open positions of the city of Bay St. Louis. Have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman DeSalvo. Do I have a second?
Moynihan seconds.
Any discussion?
This was just to adjust the building official and the
The two guys, so we had to
Assistant
officially
chief.
come back and bring the ordinance.
assistant chief for,
I'd already
correct.
approved the increases.
Okay. That's all I got.
Any other discussion? Vote the motion.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion carries 6-0.
I have a question. On, 7C, am I allowed to change my vote legally? I misread something and I'm sitting here and I'm reading over and over it and I just realized,
It's like 25,000 square foot, that lot.
yeah.
It's a big lot.
I think you'd have to ask
We-
to
We can bring it
amend to
back up.
bring it back up.
We can bring it back up for a vote?
If that's possible, yes.
Okay.
I would just call for,
Before we move on to the city
Motion
clerk's
to bring it.
report,
I'm thinking it's
One they
That.
denied.
the one we denied, so being it didn't pass, can I just call a motion for it again, or?
I would just make a motion to add it back
Back
to
up.
the,
Okay, I'll make a motion to add, the motion to follow planning and zoning's recommendation and approve the application for a special exception to construct an accessory dwelling on a parcel exceeding 15,000 square feet submitted by Eco Construction LLC located at 928 Old Spanish Trail, parcel 137Q-0-36-098. Have a motion to add it
Moynihan
back to the agenda.
motions.
Councilwoman Moynihan makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman DeSalvo. Vote the any discussion?
And this is to put it back on the agenda, then
To
we'll
put it
call
back
for
yes,
the
put it back on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, vote the motion.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passed 5-1. I will now call for a motion to follow planning and zoning's recommendation and approve the application for a special exception to construct an accessory dwelling on a parcel exceeding 15,000 square feet submitted by Eco Construction LLC located at 928 Old Spanish Trail, parcel 137Q-0-36-098. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman DeSalvo. Do I have a second?
Moynihan seconds.
Any discussion? Vote the motion.
Nay.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 4-2. Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to the city clerk's report. I will call for a motion to approve the docket of claims 26-005 dated January 20th, 2026 in the amount of $760,071.54. Do I have a motion?
Motion, DeSalvo.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Holmes. Any discussion? Vote the motion.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion carries 6-0. Councilwoman Holmes has left the room at 6:44. I'll call for a motion to approve the docket of claims 26-008 special dated January 20th, 2026 in the amount of $360. Do I have a motion?
Moynihan motions.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Lewis. Any discussion? Vote the motion.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion carries 5-0. Okay, moving on to the mayor's agenda. Councilwoman Holmes has re-entered the room at 6:44. I'll call for a motion to approve the engagement letter with Butler Snow for legal services and to reappoint Butler Snow as the city attorney for Bay St. Louis. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman DeSalvo. Do I have a second?
Moynihan seconds.
Any discussion?
Is this just a formality, a year to year, that we have to go reappoint, or what's the rationale on that?
Yes. You'll get one of these every year.
Okay. Any discussion? Vote the motion.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion carries 6-0. Okay. Moving on to council business, old and new business. We do have, Councilman DeSalvo has some items on here. Starting off with the Mississippi Power light lease.
Yes. We talked about it at budget time. We thought it was ending, but it didn't. Is it gonna ever end, or will they sell it to us, or she'll go out to bid to get our own lights installed and have them take theirs down now that all contractors technically up?
That is
Instead
what
of keep
we're
paying 'em?
working on before the next budget, to get with them and see how we get out of this.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't wanna sell us what they got there, I say we'll go
They
out
gotta
to
do
bid and get
something,
it rebid.
and hopefully it's just turned over to us after this time.
Yeah, okay.
So, yes, there's intent to go on. If we can do it sooner, that would be even better. But when we looked at it, it was just,
At the time,
couldn't happen as quick as we wanted. And so
Yeah.
we're still looking at it, trying to move forward with it and see what we gotta do to end that contract.
yes.
Our time expired, I think it was, August, maybe September, something like that. I think it was, so.
Yeah, okay, so, good deal. Just keep that on the radar.
Yeah.
Old Town striping will kinda answer
Already
them
talked about that.
questions, so.
And,
that
yeah,
was-
and that striping downtown, I think we're close, looking at, some unloading zones there, trying to get those in, the sidewalks for the ADA accessibility in our crossings. I think we may get away with just needing one cut in the downtown area. The one at Albany's gonna have to be cut for the pier and all down there. So we'll have a couple cuttings of that, creating that. Still trying to, I think shortly we'll be ready to put signage up. Get with Nancy and all also down there about putting the signage up with no parking from, I think it's gonna be from the railroad tracks to the Motley's Inn and down Main Street to behind Hancock Bank for, not sure the time, maybe 4 to 8 in the morning. They give us time, get the streets, cleaned up when need be. Also, it'll create some areas for unloading zones as well to go down, and also, we're very close on that, and they'll move forward with that soon. Want to try to look at possibility of reducing that speed zone in there to maybe 15 miles per hour in that same area, or maybe even starting back at Albany where the parking starts on the east side of the road and everything.
To mitigate some of the, Main Street's really not being utilized, or it's just not adequate. I assume it's just, we have more trucks.
It does, but it's just for right in there, and it's I see a lot of people park and go, pick up, in that area, and that's what it was meant for. Not just big trucks and everything, but anything in there. We want to we're looking at maybe possibility of doing the same thing in some areas to create regular no unloading zones to where it could help the businesses as well that wants to take out orders or whatever, stop, pick up something, where they can also park in there and go.
But it would basically get the big delivery trucks off the street so it doesn't impede traffic. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I imagine with school traffic, that gets
Yeah.
pretty crazy there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like it's ours around 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. I know we got times, but never fails.
Okay. Any other discussion on the striping plan?
Thank you.
I did want to bring up, I know Councilman Lewis had put on here about going out for RFP, and I didn't want it to fall off the ball, but I wanted to bring it up and discuss the future plans for the Bay St. Louis train depot. I know it's going to be becoming vacant really soon, so I'd like to see where we're at on a thought process on what we'd like to see, what direction we'd like to go into. I'm okay with first I'd like to hear everyone's opinions, but if we just go out for just a RFP and see what comes in, with some restrictions so people don't waste their time and, submit just any application, but, wanted to get everyone's thoughts on what they feel about it, if everyone's okay with that, or if they have any other suggestions. We'll start, if you wanna start, Councilwoman Moore.
Well, you know my,
Yeah, no,
you know my thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, I wholeheartedly think that Depot needs to be a welcome center. We need a place, that preserves our history. You know, it's a city-owned asset, and, the public needs to benefit from it. Our community needs to benefit from it. And I think it's positioned so very well with the depot grounds, with the occasions that the city has functions out there at Christmas and other times, Halloween and such. So I just think it's a jewel that we need to maintain for our community and the city.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Hall.
Yes, me and Nancy have definitely been in, sorry, somebody say? Yeah. Okay, well, me and Nancy have been in communication, and we're pretty much on the same page. We even talked about having like little booth spaces that could be possibly rented for like local artists to display their art. Things that actually reflect Bay St. Louis there. Also focusing on Amtrak. We do have the volunteers there now. I would be interested in possibly having someone there as a position so that someone is actually there and the lighting is there and it's appropriate and it's, welcoming for people getting on and off the train instead of just volunteers and no one's there with the little ladies. That to me, that just doesn't feel 100% safe the way it is now, but I do like the vision that me and Nancy have both been talking about. Maybe, like you said, send out some bids for the upstairs and the little, I don't know if the kitchen area is functional, but I wouldn't be opposed to possibly leasing those out if anybody was interested in it.
Yeah, thank you. Lewis.
Yeah, I think from day one, we went into the process of trying to reevaluate the best use of this. A lot of discussion, workshops on it. I mean, in terms of, we've established is the fact is, bottom line, you got somebody in there or not, we still have expenses we got to pay. We know we're probably not going to recoup the totality of what that expense is of those buildings when it comes to insurance and utilities. But, I kind of took it from our recent meetings because we had, obviously there's events that have transpired where we had a visitor center and Hancock County Tourism went into abeyance. We know the issue where we had an art center, we had a art museum there, and they're no longer there. And then I kind of felt like we landed on, okay, well, let's put that out and see what opportunities we have and how can we mitigate and cut into some of those expense on the city. My one thing is going to be how do we differentiate or delineate if you have, because obviously we've gone through the route of doing a decreased fair market value based on a nonprofit status. So how do we delineate if someone puts in, it's a nonprofit that can't compete with a for-profit, so how do we make that determination on what the best use is? Based on the prior discussion just now of maybe having some visitors center or welcome center, if we go that route, I'd love to try to kind of entertain and maybe invite Coastal Coastal Mississippi to come and explain how, of course, it's Hancock, but we're sending them $450,000 of the 2% lodging fee or lodging tax to the Coastal Mississippi. So maybe there can be an opportunity that they can help with the visitor center based on what we're sending them on that. So I think there's options to where it doesn't just fall on Bay St. Louis if we want to truly do like a visitor center. Look forward to maybe that discussion with them as well and see how we can cross that bridge with them. But ultimately, I think again, the goal is to try to offset some of our expenses there. And I kind of thought that was what we had discussed, and which is why we're going the direction we are. So I'm good with going out for an RFP and see what we come back with.
I guess I'm on the fence. I'd like to see, stay city related, Bay St. Louis related, but possibly rent part of it, the top if need be, to offset some of the cost.
I'm open for visitor center. I'm also, do we do any more community center space? I mean, that's nice grounds for weddings and stuff outside there. If we rented it as a community center also, is that something else
An
we may
event
need? And-
center, yeah, we could rent it for events.
Yeah, you know, something like that. I mean, to help, like Mr. Lewis said, have some revenue coming in. It wouldn't cover it, but at least there'd be some revenue and stuff, so but yeah, I think community center would be good. I mean, welcome center would be a good idea.
You know, we
Just gotta figure
talked,
out how to fund it and how to do it.
we talked with Nancy and all, some on that and many others too, you know, about the welcome center and all. And we went and visited over in Biloxi. I can't remember the name of the place, but they have a place over there where they do art on the wall and sell wall space. I don't know the prices of everything and all that. That's something, but also in that, the group that's talking is also talking about if they can get in there and make a few dollars, also return some of that to the city and to help cover cost of the building, and, you know, hopefully maybe it can be self-funded as far as personnel goes and payroll and everything in there and all. I mean, it's just something to look at, and they had a great, I thought pretty unique, you know, what they had in Biloxi, and was able to keep their walls full. It's fairly cheap. I think it's like $60 or $50 a month for 6 foot of wall space, and you know, so it's just something to think about, like Nancy was saying, and everything. Falvin, you know, can it work there? And you got the rest of it maybe to rent out if we can find something that would fit in there with it. So, but you know, go out and find out what we can do.
Yeah, there's a lot of revenue streams that would work.
You know, and I think about obviously a visitor center is great, but I'm thinking, how do we offset the cost? Because there has to be a employee to man it. You know, I kind of first hearing, you know, Josh's concept of a mini community hall, and I'd love to, that would be a beautiful place for, a wedding or, so it's kind of, how do we, you know, but I also agree with Councilman Lewis, you know, we set out to try to cover some of the cost of this building in the very beginning, which is, I'm okay with doing a blanket RFP. How do we get, you know, hopefully someone will submit, because the question becomes, how do we get to what they have in Biloxi? Who's going to facilitate it, or, you know, would that be city facilitating that? That's the challenge, is to find who would step into.
The city is not.
I'll send you a proposal.
Proposal?
Yeah. Okay.
And that's kind of the catch up with it, so.
A proposal for what, Nancy? Or
For a functioning.
visitor center?
Visitor center,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Every component that it would take to,
would that be, well,
Make
we'll look at
money.
that. I mean, is that something we want the city to run, or have staff, or what is,
I think, you know, tourism needs to be, that building and in that prominent space needs to be run by the city. It's a city, you know, it's not a county tourism. I don't think we need to farm it off to someone else. I think the city needs to take responsibility for its tourism.
guess more discussions once we get to
Yeah.
the point.
Are we good with at least the second floor going out, getting a RFP for
I'm
the
good with
second
that.
floor?
The top floor.
The top floor, yeah. And,
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have to
Wait.
accept an RFP that comes in with the first.
Are we
floor.
going to set parameters for that? Like you said, you know, you don't want people coming in and, you know,
Yeah, I think,
wasting their
I
time.
think as far as use of the building, what we'd like to see, so with an RFP, we don't have to accept anything that comes in,
No, we don't have to
so.
accept it, but you don't want people.
But we don't want people to waste their time. I mean, just obviously alcohol sales, I don't want to see that in there. I don't want, you know, to
Yeah,
turn
it
into a
can't be a
bar
bar
room,
room.
you know, stuff like that. That's more so what I was thinking with setting the parameters. I didn't want someone to come try to pitch us on a train bar, you know, or something. So, that was really my main thing I didn't want to see. Don't know how, you know, if there's any other restrictions someone else would want to put, but that would be my one, that, you know, whatever we come up with, I wouldn't want to see that in there.
And I would hate to see there be like competitive businesses for what's already there on Blaze, because right now they're thriving. So I would hate to put something in it that's direct
Like
competition.
boutique or something?
All right.
I mean, I kind of look at it as, I mean, I think if you're gonna have, and we've discussed this before, the unique dynamic of having 2 floors, 2 stories, having different entities in there, can they work harmoniously together? You know, so again, a little bit different in I get on the chamber building. But still, we've discussed that even with both buildings, is that, okay, you put something on the top floor, and then how does that, and depending on what's on the first, how does that work congruently together? I'd say go, unless, I mean, I'm okay with doing it for the entirety of the building and see what comes back.
Yeah. Is there something that we can set up with, because we're going to coastal tourism, right? Or,
Well, that was just a
whatever
thought, is if you know, if that's gonna be, you know, if it's a city responsibility to staff, say, a visitor center, you know, again, there is already a mechanism for tourism that we're giving coastal Mississippi to help with that. So should that be a burden or expense solely on the city when we are providing 2% of our lodging fee that goes to coastal Mississippi? So maybe I open that dialogue, so that's not a added expense on top of the expenses already on that building. So that was
that's
just,
something that we can do, set up like maybe a meeting or with them, some type of way, to see what services they can possibly provide or help compensate?
I mean, I'd like to kind of
Like,
see,
how do we reach out to them to present like all of us at once?
yeah, and where we
I'm sure
I
Judy
mean, I
Young,
think-
who's over that,
yeah.
would be happy to do that. She has not come since you guys have been here, but she has come to the council meetings before and given an overview of what coastal Mississippi does.
Yeah,
So we-
Kyle, didn't you have a meeting set up? with-
No, well, I just wanted to better understand. I did reach out to Judy. I wanted to better understand their operations and how we fit in with that. There was a meeting scheduled, but I think it'd be more prudent for Judy to come address the council on that. So, you know, that's up to the council. I think better understand, enlighten us on their operations and how we fit into that and what our needs are. If our needs are, hey, we want a visitor center, you know, we are also paying the expense on this building, we're paying the city of Bay St. Louis, and, you know, taxes go towards coastal Mississippi, so I don't wanna, you know, lose sight of the fact that how can we work together on that without the city having to foot that bill, so.
So I guess, obviously, nothing on the agenda today can we get something put together, for the next council meeting about what that RFP would look like? And I guess throughout the week, if you have anything you don't wanna see there, send it. You know, as far as the top floor, I would like to see one person take the entirety of it. So, as far as first and second floor, I think that's a lot of square footage for one person to take. But I do want to keep, you know, entire floors. That way we're not dealing with potentially 4 tenants you'd be dealing with too. But if we can get something put together for the next meeting, that way we can go ahead and get this in motion, I'd be good with that. And then if nothing comes back, then we can go visitor center, if we can figure out that part, and then at least another venue.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, see where we're at. All right. Sounds good. All right, moving on to, any other discussion with that? Are we good with that plan?
Sounds good.
Sounds good? All right. Moving on to our public forum. While Caitlin is getting that, getting the sheet, I know a lot of people are here to talk about the 2045 zoning ordinance. Since it was released, you know, we've seen a lot of feedback, gotten a lot of comments. I did want to address a couple of things that, you know, sent today about what we're doing to better the process, to allow more public input, to extend the timeline. So the first thing we did, we removed the February 11th public hearing date. You know, whenever we thought, you know, whenever this, it was more so, if perfect case scenario, no public comment came back, it would have went February 11th, and then at the March meeting, come to us. Obviously, we know we're receiving a lot of public comment right now, so that's not a realistic date. So that was the first thing. So we're still gonna have a public comment. We're gonna extend that until the council feels ready. And then, you know, possibly I think a workshop would be beneficial, and then have a public hearing. So that'll be the first thing. We'll let the public comment run, and then we'll get something scheduled as far as for a workshop. And then we also included 3 new ways there's 3 ways now to submit public comment. through Dropbox directly on the webpage. You can email Jeremy Burke directly. I know there was some questions about you had to sign up for Dropbox, so we implemented this morning a form on the actual webpage. So you can go directly to that form, submit your comment, and when you submit it, it goes to Jeremy Burke and
On the
O'Brien.
city's webpage.
On the city's webpage. So it's actually where all the links are. It's on the city webpage. So we wanted everyone to, we didn't want any hassle. We wanted everyone to feel like they could comment, and we wanted it to be accessible as well. We also added a link to the file on the that same webpage, so you can click it instead of a Dropbox link. There was also the 2045 comprehensive plan now linked on that same webpage. We also have requested Orion to send us separate maps with each new district separated, so there's not a bunch of colors overlaying each other. And those maps will be printed, and we will post those in the council chambers as well as the city hall conference room, and it will also be added to the website. The next thing is we're creating the document right now, or Orion is comparing the current zoning districts to the new ones regarding lot size, minimum yard front width, setbacks, and that way it'll be a lot easier to see the differences. If you're like me, you've been looking at the comprehensive plan on one screen, the old, you're looking at the new one. So that'll make it a little bit easier for everyone to get through.
Do you want to have a quick question? Do you want to get
Yeah,
to
let
that?
me, if you don't mind, so I don't
Okay.
lose my spot.
All right.
It'll be, and that will also be added to the website. In addition to that, there are printed copies available at City Hall. Just in case someone does not have computer access, you can go there and pick up a copy. And then we will, there's also going to be a weekly advertisement in the paper, weekly Facebook posts about the zoning ordinance. WLOX was at the P&Z meeting and actually interviewed Bob with Orion when it was drafted. And then also, he's available, obviously, for all of the council members to reach out to. So feel free to give our input, but please, right now, submit public comment. That's the part of this process that we're in, and we want to continue on that track. So.
And Jordan, if somebody wants the old-fashioned pen and paper route, that's fine too. Just drop it at Jeremy
Drop it at
Burke's
Jeremy.
office.
Perfect. So just want everyone to know the kind of updates on where we are with that. And thank you, everybody, for y'all's feedback thus far to this point as well. Moving on to the public forum did you have any?
Yeah, I did. So, Riso, just kind of clarify. So, when comments are made, are there going to be dynamic changes, or because if we're going to be printing these maps and then make a change, so how interactive and live and how dynamic are we getting in making these changes? Because I've already seen a couple. So is that going to
I would
continue?
assume that he's making any changes that would be like corrections or something that was like, wait, that wasn't supposed to be that way. Or if somebody said something that was wacko. But, I mean, anything substantial, I think that would still be.
So if there's an oversight or error, that's been corrected.
I would think that would be adjusted.
But it's not to
Like, "Well,
say,
that
hey,
wasn't
I'm not
supposed to
happy
be
with
like that."
this, I want this back. It's not
No, I
just
don't
going to be
think
You're not
added.
gonna take one person and say, I don't like this, and change it.
Okay,
don't
that's what I
anticipate
wanted.
that, no.
That's what I wanted to
Yeah, 'cause
clarify.
there's
I don't
mean,
like this, and change it.
I
Okay.
think there's
There's
a
a
lot
lot.
of opinions out there. So, I mean, I think they've got to get the opinion. If there's a consensus on opinions, all of a sudden people are saying, hey, we don't like 8-foot fences, we want 6 foot. There's 1,000 people saying that, then, that might be a recommendation. Y'all going, hey, look, we're getting a lot of this.
Yeah, no,
Making
and
that up, but
I appreciate the clarification, because I either misheard or misread. I think that was part of it early on, was if you have this issue, we have the ability live time, you put the comment in the Dropbox and we can make that change specific to that, so.
no, I mean, like they did with the comprehensive plan, I mean, they were emailing back to the constituent, the resident who put in a comment, they would comment back and say, hey, let me explain this or whatever. So, I mean,
On the
there would be
Dropbox,
some
have
of
we
that.
seen a lot of comments? So I put some on there, because that was the advice of Bob. I've talked with Bob and then talked with you, so go ahead and just put it in the comments section, but I haven't gotten a response, I haven't seen a response. Have we seen a lot? There's only 6
I've
comments.
personally received a few emails, and I've just forwarded them on and received one today.
But it's live,
Somebody.
there's about 20 responses on the document itself.
and that should pull up, right, when you just go on the city
Yeah,
website?
I mean,
click
if
on
you
the
go to
document?
it, it's live, you can see comments on the right
okay.
column,
Okay,
whoever, put them in there.
all right.
And otherwise, emails are going, Jeremy's gotten several. Jeremy's had multiple visitors probably every day talking through stuff.
And we'll have a
And they're
compare, like a
emailing.
side-by-side compare, we'll have a synopsis of what the changes were, so you don't have to go from a 175-page document to the current ordinance, so we'll have.
I've asked, because I thought they were keeping that of our old ordinance compared to our new ordinance and what changes, like red line type of thing. I call it a red line.
Where's that
document.
now?
I've asked for it, so I can upload that too.
Got it. Okay, so we can get an opportunity to see what that is. Okay, all right.
But I mean, our current ordinance, if you remember, it got shifted just to organize it. And, you know, so I mean, it's complete rewrite, I mean, overall.
What he's saying is the red line document's a little hard to follow unless you're very familiar with our zoning ordinance.
Can we get maybe just a summary of changes?
I don't think that's possible.
I don't think that would be possible.
I mean, this is
I
a
mean,
complete rewrite of your zoning ordinance, so
So-
I don't think that's possible to get I mean, I think
So
the
my-
best thing you can do is the side-by-side comparisons, the red line, but I think it's unrealistic, nor do I think it's practical to ask them to go in and say, chapter this became that. I mean,
Well, I
don't
just,
think
I want to
that's
look at it
reality.
from all practicality purposes, and if it was just, just mentioned that the red line's gonna be hard to follow. Again, I appreciate the steps going towards making this as easy as possible for the public, but if it's hard to follow those red lines, I mean, I think that's the nature of what.
As I said, it's hard to follow if you're not familiar. Somebody like you will probably realize it, because there
Yeah,
might be a
but
whole
more on the
section
public
that
that
looks
I wanna make
completely
sure.
struck out.
Yeah.
It might not actually be gone. It may not have made sense where it was in our previous zoning ordinance, so it is now moved to section 4 instead of section 1. So that's what I say when I'm saying it's hard to follow. I mean, it's
Mhm.
very easy to see what has been deleted, but there also, when you look at a red line document, you also have to think a little bit and say, okay, is this actually removed, or is there another place in this document that it may be?
So I'm sure once we get that, we'll be fielding and helping some of our constituents and citizens that have calls about that. And Jordan, you had alluded to doing some workshops. You guys want to set a workshop? Are we at that point where we want to set something?
Personally, I think let the public comments keep flowing in, and then whenever they slow down, have a workshop after that. I mean, or we can have one in the middle of, I mean, because we have the public comment period is, we extended it to 8 weeks, is that what we're saying to get a good?
It's indefinite.
It's up to the council to
Is
really
to
decide.
say
now.
an
Yeah.
8-week
Long as it
period,
takes.
so at the end of that 8-week period, I'll be okay with going ahead and scheduling a workshop. So we talked about it at the
Maybe.
meeting on the 5th, correct? Let's see, or 6th, so let's go 1, 2, 3, 4.
So our next meeting's the third, and then we have the 18th,
17.
February
March.
3rd. February 3rd, and then February 18th, it's a Wednesday because of the holiday.
Yeah, but we're not.
Probably a
doing
bad week,
anything.
just in case people are out with Mardi Gras. Do the following,
March 3rd.
March
Yeah.
3rd? That way that'll
At
give plenty of
least,
time for the,
At
we'll
least.
run the public comment all the way up until,
And that'll be for the workshop.
for the workshop, yeah.
What's that third? What's that?
March 3rd's a Tuesday.
First
I mean, we
Tuesday
can-
of the month.
So you're gonna do that?
Or we
Okay,
can,
the first Tuesday? Okay, prior
mean,
to the first meeting.
or y'all wanna do it on a
Well,
separate,
I think
separate
the
day?
third is gonna actually be our regularly scheduled council
Scheduled.
meeting.
Yeah, is on there, all right.
We could do a workshop the day before.
The day before on the 2nd?
Yeah.
That sounds good. March 2nd? Everyone good with that?
I have another meeting that day, but, I mean, y'all may not need me, but I just want to tell you I will not be able to be there on March 2nd.
Yeah, the
The
second,
second or
it'd be a workshop outside of the regular scheduled city council meeting.
Or should we do it on the 4th so we can remind people on the 3rd that we have a workshop the following day? I mean,
You available on the 4th?
Let's see. I know the 3rd off the top of my head. I have to check the 4th. Yes, 4th is fine.
And this will be an opportunity for the public to come
Come, yeah.
and speak.
Speak, yeah.
Yep, okay.
are we good with March 4th?
Yep, for me.
Okay. Yes, so currently those are, the dates we were just throwing around are our regularly scheduled council meetings. The March 4th, we're gonna have a public workshop, so that'll give ample time for public comment, throughout that period, and then, so you can look at them when you come to a council meeting. And then we'll also have them at City Hall, so I think that'll give ample amount of time, to kind of get a good first one, to go into that workshop and then see what comes from that, so. Okay.
time, 5:30?
5:30, yeah. I think 5:30 is good.
And then Mike Reese said we can get Bob's availability for that, so he can provide some feedback as well.
Also, I think it'd be a good idea if we got a copy of that contract, just to make sure
Mhm.
that we're still in our budget.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
they were
that's
gonna
where you
send it.
run into problems if you call on Bob too many
Yeah,
times.
like
Well,
we
that's what we're
need
trying to establish.
Some
We need
of
to-
I will also tell y'all that we've had multiple meetings with Bob, or you've really had multiple meetings with Bob via Zoom too. So that is always a option that if they can't be here, if they have something else scheduled, to Zoom in, and they have screen sharing capabilities, and they do this all the time. So it's very organized, and it's really not much different as if he was standing at that podium.
All right, so March 4th, 5:30, we'll have a workshop here. So, okay, moving on to the public forum, I just want to get all that out the way. We do have some people signed up. Mr. Tad Black, regarding the zoning ordinance.
Thank you, council. Real quick, I'm gonna make this statement, and it's true. Go find it out. Go to any consultant in zoning. Zoning controls the quality of life in your community. That's a fact. From over and I've been involved with person, the 2010, and of course for the one that y'all talking about now, 2045. I'd like to know how many other cities, because I've checked with other cities, how many cities use this catch-all low, medium, high density zoning, right? I don't think that's gonna protect the quality of life in Bay St. Louis. I wanna know how that came about, instead of getting rid of our R1, R2, R3, R1A, R1B, because that's what was adopted back in 1964, right? So I want to know what other cities are using this and how well is it working out for them? Because I've heard of it after Katrina. Now remember, after Katrina, they did give some leeway to people. They took, instead of having a 25-foot frontage, you could have a 25 instead of a 30. They reduced it from 10 on the side to 8. So they did some changing to help rebuild Bay St. Louis. We added 50 foot in the downtown area height on the advisory board for the second comprehensive plan, right? But first of all, I want to know what other cities use this, because Waveland doesn't, Pasco Shan doesn't, Long Beach doesn't. Long Beach is majority R1, right? I talked to their city planning person. Most of their land is R1, single dwelling, because that's what sets your quality of life in your community. All right. Second, how did when the majority of the people that participated in the comprehensive plan a couple years ago, in their statements, in their comments, they said, we want less density. How did this map come about that is nothing but more density? In my neighborhood, the neighborhood you grew up in, right, 100-foot lots by 144. That's the average. There's some smaller ones out there because of T lots, because of the streets running diagonal to the highway. But anyway, so I really think that we need to give a hard thought about this catch-all, medium, high, and low density. That's going to cause more problems for special exceptions, setback requirements. And when I looked at some of the requirements for the high density, that's a joke. That's a joke. And I'm scared. This is going to be, I believe, will be one of the biggest decisions this council makes in the next 4 years. And where do we want our city? Do we want to protect the quality of life that's been here since I've been here, and that's been 64 years? Right? I love this town, and that's why I fight for the right zoning. Right? And I want each one of you council to do a thorough job. I told Ms. Holmes, and I talked to her before the election, I picked up that zoning book and I said, that is your Bible for quality of life in Bay St. Louis. Did I not?
You did.
All right, it is. And the way it's zoned right now is going to cause a lot of concern don't know, it's not really spelled out, what is high, what's low, you got your lot sizes 5,000 to 10,000, whatever. I do not think this way of zoning is the correct way to zone our city. Because we did a future land use map as a city councilman back in the 90s. And all the land that's in question right now should have been rezoned. But the council and Katrina happened, so it fell through the cracks. It was a beautiful future land use map for the first comprehensive plan. It put residential where residential should be. It put commercial where commercial should be. But it didn't get, I still have it. It's in my attic. Matter of fact, I told Councilman Lewis I'm gonna dig it out and give it to him. I do not understand how I was on the advisory committee with all the Zoom meetings and all that, and most of the people that participated do not want this type of density in our community. Now, I don't know what's gonna happen. There may be some other people that didn't participate that do want it. I know there's a lot of developers out there. And I know the map has changed in the last week because I started looking at it, and 2 or 3 days later, land that I was worried about being high density, all of a sudden went from high density to medium density. I don't know how that happens. I didn't tell anybody to do it. I called my councilman about it, and he started checking on it, and a couple days later, the map changed. Just like that.
That's what the comments for.
Well, so there it goes. So one person can make a comment and change it?
I mean, I think
I
maybe
think that's the job of all 7 of y'all.
yeah, I mean, we all 7 of us
Right.
will approve it though.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I want y'all to really do your homework. This is very, very important. You know, me, where I live right now on 7th Street, been there most of my life, it's not gonna affect me because everybody around me's already built, right? But when you start, there's a lot of vacant property on Hugo Street, 10th Street, there's still vacant property, and those lots are 100 by 144, and your new zoning says we can make it 90-foot lots, right? I don't even like that. Mine will become where I can make it a 90-foot lot. That's what it has according to the scale that the best I could determine, but there were so many shades of yellow with medium density and high density, but I know there was a piece of property on the corner of Old Washington Street and Suby Street that was the same density as Spanish Acres. Because you got to remember, Spanish Acres was being processed before the zoning was actually put into play. And so there were some things that happened. And then some developers got a pecan park. Let me go back to Spanish Acres. Because it was done wrong, there was too many houses, it cost the taxpayers of Bay St. Louis $4 million to fix that drainage project. $4 million to fix the drainage where people in Spanish Acres don't have to park on the old Spanish Trail for a day when it rains 3 inches. Density causes more runoff. You clear a lot, you build an average size house, you got 45% more runoff. When you start putting more density on that property, you're gonna have more than 45, and there's already flooding problems again in the area where I live. Matter of fact, we need to get the ditches dug out again. Thank you.
And just
Thank you,
quick,
Mr. Buck.
just a quick point of clarification. Tad, I know, you're actually my appointee from the Comprehensive Plan 2045 Advisory Council. And
That is correct.
appreciate, based on your knowledge and experience, appreciate you attending those meetings. I hope in the future you do come to our workshop because you had great knowledge.
Oh, I will.
But just a point, but.
I'm not going away on this. It's serious to me.
But in terms of the comprehensive plan, you were at those meetings, but for advisory council was not necessarily involved in the zoning.
No, I asked that specific question to Bob in a Zoom meeting, you know, when are we gonna take a look at the future land use map? Because that's what we're supposed to have, right? And he said, well, that's a separate phase. That was his comment. And the second phase, I think Anita she was on the board, and I don't know if anybody else, just us two, but there's more than that. But I was never contacted about the zoning issue.
Just
From the advisory board, okay? That didn't happen. And to be honest with you, like I said, 3 comprehensive plans that I've participated in. 1 as a councilman, 2 as a citizen. And I wasn't really impressed with the group session because I kept asking for meetings for us to sit down as a group like we did in 2008 for the 2010 comprehensive plan. And Bob kept promising me that we were gonna meet as a group. We only met on Zoom. And the only thing we got out of the Zoom was data. data that says maybe we can make people in downtown put a parking garage on their roof. Or we take the frugal shopping center and turn that into a condo resort. Those were artist concepts that we looked at when Bob presented some stuff. The zoning never was brought up, to my knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Black.
Jordan, may I address two things real quick?
Yeah.
I just want, just for clarification, because there's so many people listening to this. So one thing that everybody needs to keep in mind is that pre-existing subdivisions, those lots have already been subdivided. So if you live in a subdivision, so let's take Pecan Park, that is a platted subdivision. In order to go and alter the size of those lots or change those lots, you would have to get Chancery Court approval. So we just need to keep that in mind, that when you're talking about those lots, and if they're in subdivision, those have already been set. Those are there, and it would have to come, yes, it would come here, but it would have to go to Chancery Court. The other thing that I wanted to point out, just when you're talking like R1, R2, R3, cities use all different terms, and a lot of people do use R1, but as Mr. Black pointed out, the city of Long Beach does. Well, yeah, they do, but in the city of Long Beach, an R1 single family residence, the requirement of a lot width is 75 feet, and the lot area minimum is 7,500 square feet. So for educational purposes, I just want to make sure everybody listening to this and to you guys know that an R1 in Bay St. Louis and an R1 in Long Beach, or an R1 in Gulfport, or a high density, which would call it side of Lemon here, like, could be total different. So you have to go to, if you go to compare your zoning ordinance, Bay St. Louis's to anyone else's, make sure you look at the chart of uses, and then make sure you actually go look at what the definitions and what the requirements of each of those zones are, because they're different anywhere you go.
Thank you for the clarification. Moving on to the next public forum, we have Ms. Kathleen Monty. Yeah, we'll bring up Mr. Cliff.
Before I start, I want to say that the mood has changed significantly since the January 5th meeting. Y'all all heard what the original timeline was? That wasn't optional at that January 5th meeting. It was the gospel. So my comments are based on that.
Mr. Cliff, that part was a perfect scenario before we received
But
any
that's
public comment.
what was being advertised to these people. Matter of fact, why don't you ask how many people are here because of this? And then I'm going to ask, why wasn't it on the agenda and the first thing for people to talk about instead of them sitting here for 3 hours?
Because we have a public forum and a procedural.
Because you didn't want to hear from the citizens of the Bay St. Louis. All right, start my time. I'm going to read it because, and I'm here to express a concern shared by a number of citizens of Bay St. Louis. Impression is that this new P&Z ordinance is trying to be slipped in, voted on, and enacted while no one is watching. That the city council really doesn't want to have to deal with taking input from citizens that elected them. You were elected by citizens. You don't want to deal with it. The mere fact that I asked to be a guest speaker and to have sufficient time to present this, but was taken off the schedule and asked to speak at the end of this on the non-agenda forum with a 3-minute limit reinforces that impression that y'all don't want to hear from the citizens. It also bears a question, why is something this important not on the agenda? In conversations with you, some of you city council members, I believe there's a good bit of interest in reviewing this document in detail and correcting or killing this albatross before voting on it. And those of you who relayed that to me, please don't be offended by my comments. We've been told to make comments directly on the website to Orion. I've emailed mine via Jeremy Burke and Mike Rizzo because it's difficult or impossible to put comments on the website. Many of the folks I've spoken to tell me the same thing. You can't make comments online. I understand y'all have fixed that. Thank God. More of, but that's what's our impression. Y'all don't want to hear from us. That's what we're seeing. I've heard the words regarding the ordinance, we need to trust the process. I want you to keep in mind that the same folks telling us that, the city administration are the folks who are in charge of ensuring development goes on as supposed to be, as in Shieldsboro, to be done correctly. Yet go look at Shieldsboro. It was bulldozed flat. That's the administration we're supposed to trust. I don't think I'm alone in my comments that a few years back when I heard some feelings here and I said I had no faith that the administration would do the right thing. Trust and credibility, once lost, is hard to regain. The ordinance draft written by Orion and paid for by the citizens of Bay St. Louis supposedly was developed with input from the citizens. The last 3 big development pushes in this city were all met with public pushback. SWK development between 3rd and Beach, the part between Central and Ballantyne and Shieldsbury, all 3 were opposed to higher density developments, and all 3 had a lot of opposition, not to being developed, but to being developed as higher density areas. Yet this draft ordinance moves the entire city in the opposite direction. We didn't have input from people. Unless I'm mistaken, there are no public workshops regarding this ordinance, but yeah, y'all have scheduled some now. Y'all had the only input was on the plan, which is not a fast and hard ordinance. It was a living document. A recent meeting where Bob Barker was present, the question was asked, will there be a public comment period? The answer was given was consistent with similar questions. Public comments will be taken at the P&Z meeting. City council won't be taking comments. That's what was spoken at the January 5th meeting. I refer to my initial remarks. Council does not want to hear from its citizens. And that's the impression that you guys have given the citizens. And tonight, Mike Ford has told me when I walked in, that has changed, but it changed tonight. Contractors, Orion in this case, will listen to the people that write the check. They'll be polite and listen to the other people, but they're going to respond to the people that write the check. You guys write the check to Orion. I got 2 more pages. I don't have all 12 pages of documents, but I got more to say. My time's up. But then I would ask that there be, yeah, I'm watching the time. Maybe you aren't, but I am.
Well, thank you,
Now,
Mr. Cliff. Your time is up, so now I have to.
I'd like to ask for a show of hands of who's here for the P&Z, and then ask you, why was it not on the agenda and why was it not first?
Mr. Cliff, at the January 5th meeting, I want to point out that was the first time every single council member
So
up here
why
saw
did
it.
y'all not get that from the administration earlier?
It was the first time.
Y'all need to ask them people why they not giving you the information a little bit on a timely basis.
I'm not trying to argue with you or anything. I'm just here to tell you from a councilman's perspective. I was given that day we received it, or actually it came in at the P&Z meeting. I don't know about you, it's 150 pages long.
175 pages.
It's a lot of pages long.
Yeah, I've read it.
And I understand, I've seen your comments back, and I do appreciate them, but to take the fact that we received it that day, the timeline that was presented on January 5th was a perfect world if no comments were to be coming in. That wasn't clarified and wasn't put out there, so apologize for the
Do
confusion.
you understand?
But I want to make this very clear to you and everybody in this room. There's not a person up here that's trying to push this under anybody in this room or in this city. So to come up here and accuse that, I do not appreciate that. So thank you very much, Mr. Cliff. Your time is up. Thank you.
Didn't figure you'd like my comment.
Thank you. Moving on to Ms. Kathleen Monty.
Good evening, Kathleen Monty, 105 Sycamore, and I don't know if it's appropriate to discuss this tonight or not. It does refer to the zoning map, but I'm afraid it's going to get lost, and so that's why I want to bring it up now. And it's when I looked at the maps, which the colors are difficult, and I've got a suggestion about that later I'll add, but the entire beachfront area on the water side of the seawall from Beach Boulevard of the city's northern boundary line at Cedar Point to the south city line at Waveland is zoned bayfront. This includes the Washington Street Pier and Pavilion area owned by the county. There does not appear to be any separate zoning any longer to protect sand beach and land located to the south of the seawall from development. If so, this really truly cannot and should not be allowed. According to the table 4.1 in the proposed ordinance, the following is allowed by right in bayfront zoning. Our house is bayfront zoning. Across the street is bayfront zoning. Okay, got a picture? All right. Across the street, accessory structures, all these are allowed by right according to what I read. Accessory structures, fences, home occupation, swimming pools, government buildings, accessory dwellings, single-family dwellings. And then additionally, the following is allowed by special exception. Did I say by special exception the first time? I meant by right, if I did. Okay. This is what's allowed by special exception according to that same table for the Bayfront. Bed and breakfast, Assembly Hall and Lodge, gazebos. Please create a zone to protect the sand beach and the land area south of the seawall, similar to what the current R5 and R5A zones protect. If not, someone please explain why, because I don't understand. I mean, that's one of our greatest assets as a city. And if you go back and look at the R5 that we had before, fences, gazebos, piers, and non-habitable structures were allowed by special exception use, if passed, for an affected area only that began at Beach Boulevard, 618 North Beach Boulevard, south to 612 South Beach Boulevard. So please, I hope that the new one will, and I'm thrilled to know that we are going to be having more input, more workshops, and I'll do my best to put this in the computer, but it would be awfully long.
I'll personally get with you and get that done.
Miss Kathleen,
we'll
are
get
you
that.
talking about, let me see,
Everything south of the beach road, pretty much.
yeah, land, land in the Bayfront, are you talking about the Bayfront? Is that the district that you're looking, or are you talking about the Bay?
They call it Bayfront.
Land in the Bayfront district between Beach Boulevard and the seawall shall be limited to fences, gazebos, piers, and non-habitable structures by special exception only.
Is that
So, only.
in the new one or
Yes,
the old one?
yes, ma'am.
All right,
that's
where are you
on-
finding it? Because I didn't see that.
It's,
I,
why
honestly,
don't
I
you
did
just
not.
come here and I'll show
Okay.
you, I don't,
Thank you.
no, it's right on the page.
Bayfront, it gives all the definitions.
It's in 3.5, see on Bayfront, so some of this is to try to keep.
Hey, Heather and Miss Kathleen, are y'all okay if I go ahead and call up the next?
Yeah, that's why, yeah, that's,
No,
I'm
you're
sorry,
fine.
Jordan, that's why I called her.
Miss Anita Warner?
Thank you for changing the schedule. What I don't understand is what your comment time is. I understand we're gonna have a workshop on March the 4th. When are the comments gonna be due by? March 4th or up sometime before that?
I think we probably need to set a deadline
I mean,
the
you
week
want,
before,
yeah,
that way there's some, we can
okay,
get the
I'm
list
just,
of
something, because I am a Luddite and I have tried to use that website and I'm so glad you may get some other things. It was very frustrating to go on and try and comment and then Dropbox comes in and then they want you to subscribe and then they start sending me emails. Don't want to do that. I'm glad you've given us some other alternatives. I was a member of the Environment Committee, so I was very concerned about, as y'all know, trees and landscaping and all those things. And I agree with Tad. Well, they heard it, and then we never had another meeting. So, but everything that we have said for the last however many years, we fought Shieldsboro, because remember, they wanted 175 lots originally, and now they're down to, I think, 120 some odd thereabouts in the second phase. And they swore they would save the trees, and what do? They went in and bulldozed practically everything in sight. That's not what we want. I don't care who the developers are. They don't live here. They come here, they take money out of this community, and they leave. You need to make sure this zoning ordinance works for all of us who are here. We don't want to be Pensacola Beach. We don't want to be Biloxi. We don't want high rises. We want to keep the charm of our town, and they say that in the comprehensive plan. So thanks. You'll be hearing more from me.
Thank you very much. Okay, nobody else is signed up for the public forum, so we will move on to our next order of business, being our attorney's report. Is there anything to cover with the attorney's report?
No, you've heard enough from me.
Yeah. No need for executive session. I will call for a motion to adjourn the meeting of January 20th, 2026.
Morning motions.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Holmes. Any discussion? Vote the motion.
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Meeting's adjourned. Been out of here with us.